What if I told you that two homes could have the exact same square footage on paper, cost the same to build, sit on the same lot, and one of them feels like a shoebox while the other feels like a palace? No tricks, no vaulted ceilings, no extra windows, just one decision made at the very beginning before a single nail is driven. That decision is the floor plan shape. And in 2026, one layout is quietly blowing up in the tiny home and alternative housing world for exactly this reason. It is called the hub and spoke model. And today, I'm going to break down exactly why it feels twice as big as a standard rectangle, and why more and more people building compact homes are choosing it over everything else. Stick with me until the end of this video, because I'm going to show you the one feature hidden inside the hub and spoke design that almost nobody talks about, and it just might be the single most powerful space trick in residential architecture. You do not want to miss it. Before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. This channel is all about alternative and affordable housing. We dig into the real numbers, the real designs, and the real strategies that help regular people build smarter, cheaper, and better. Hit subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss a video. Now let us get into it. Let me paint you a picture. You are standing in the most common tiny home floor plan on the market today. It is a rectangle, roughly 24 feet long by 10 feet wide. That is 240 square feet. Pretty standard. You walk in the front door. You are in the living area. Then you walk straight back through the kitchen. Then you hit the bathroom. Then you reach the bedroom at the back. It is one long corridor. One hallway of a home. Now here's the thing nobody tells you before you move in. That layout has a profound psychological effect on how your brain perceives the space. Research from the field of neuroarchitecture, which is literally the science of how building design affects your brain, tells us that humans perceive enclosed, linear spaces as smaller and more stressful than spaces that radiate outward from a central point. A study published in the journal Frontiers in Psychology found that 4 specific design elements shape how spacious a room feels: view access, view content, materials, and ceiling geometry. What that comes down to in plain English is this: when your eye has nowhere to travel except straight ahead to a wall, your brain concludes the space is small. Researchers now call this effect the absence of multidirectional enclosure. When your eye can travel in multiple directions simultaneously from where you're standing, your brain reads the space as large. A rectangle gives your eye one direction, forward. And that is the core problem with the standard tiny home layout. Not the square footage, the geometry. So what exactly is the hub and spoke model in residential design? The name comes from the bicycle wheel. You have a central hub, and from that hub, spokes radiate outward in multiple directions. In a home, the hub is a central shared space. Usually a great room that combines your living, dining, and kitchen functions into one open, generous area. From that hub, the spokes radiate outward as wings of the home. A bedroom wing in one direction, a bathroom and utility wing in another, maybe a workspace or guest room in a third direction. Instead of walking through your home in a straight line, you stand at the center and your eye naturally travels outward in multiple directions simultaneously. Interior designers and architects have a term for this. They call it radial balance or radiation rhythm, and the effect it has on spatial perception is dramatic. As one design resource puts it, the result is a unique mix of energy and calm. The central anchor gives your eye a place to rest, making the room feel grounded and intentional. At the same time, the radiating layout creates a subtle feeling of movement, keeping the space from feeling static or boring. In other words, your brain stops calculating the edges and starts experiencing the flow. And flow reads as space. The 5 reasons it feels twice as big. Reason 1, the dead-end hallway problem is eliminated. In a standard rectangular home, hallways are thieves. They eat square footage and give nothing back. A 4-foot wide, 10-foot long hallway in a tiny home is 40 square feet that you're paying for, heating, and maintaining, but never actually living in. Designers in the barnuminium space have been onto this for years. The no-hallway layout, where the central great room serves as the circulation hub and rooms connect directly off it, means every single square foot is livable space. The hub and spoke model takes this principle and builds an entire architectural philosophy around it. In a 400 square foot hub and spoke home, you might reclaim 30 to 60 square feet that would have been a hallway in a rectangle. That is not nothing. That is a walk-in closet. That is a full bathroom. That is a functional dining nook. Reason 2. Your eye gets multiple sight lines simultaneously. Stand at the center of a hub and spoke home and count the sight lines. You might be able to see the kitchen to your left, the outdoor deck through glass doors straight ahead, a bedroom door angled to your right, and the entry behind you. That is 4 distinct visual directions from one standing point. Now stand in a rectangle. You see the wall in front of you, the wall behind you, and the 2 walls on either side. Linear, bounded, closed. The research is clear on this. Studies on spatial perception confirm that multidirectional enclosure, the ability to see into multiple areas from a single vantage point, is one of the most powerful drivers of how large a space feels to the human brain. The hub and spoke model is essentially an architecture optimized for multidirectional enclosure. The rectangle, by definition, is not. Reason 3. Natural light penetrates deeper. In a rectangular home, natural light enters from the 2 short ends and the 2 long sides. Because the home is narrow and deep, light from the ends barely reaches the middle of the floor plan before it gets absorbed. In a hub and spoke design, the central hub is surrounded by wings on multiple sides. Windows and doors on each wing allow light to enter from several angles and converge at the center. The result is a central living space that is dramatically brighter than the center of a same-sized rectangle. And here is the design psychology payoff. Space filled with natural light is consistently perceived as larger than the same physical space with dimmer light. You're not just getting more light, you're getting more perceived space for free, baked into the geometry. Reason 4. The hub creates compression and release. Good architecture plays with your emotions. It creates moments of compression, where the ceiling or walls come in tighter, followed by moments of release, where the space opens up dramatically. That contrast makes both spaces feel more intense. In a hub and spoke home, the spokes, being the bedroom and utility wings, are naturally more compressed. They are smaller, more intimate, more private. When you walk from a spoke wing into the central hub, you experience a genuine moment of spatial release. That contrast makes the hub feel expansive even if it is only 150 square feet, because your brain is comparing it to the spoke you just left, not to the living room you might see in a magazine. The rectangle does not give you this. It transitions you from one box to another box. Same ceiling height, same width, same feel. No contrast, no moment of arrival. Reason 5. It mirrors patterns the human brain finds natural. Here is where it gets genuinely interesting. Humans have an ancient, hardwired preference for radial geometry. Think about it. The sun radiates outward. Flowers radiate outward. Galaxies spiral outward from a center. Even the structure of the human eye, which is the very tool we use to perceive space, is radial in its design. Neuroarchitecture researchers have found that our brains respond to circular and radial spatial patterns with lower stress markers and higher feelings of safety and well-being compared to purely linear environments. Museums, airports, cathedrals, and great civic buildings have used this principle for centuries. They create central rotundas and domed halls that radiate outward into wings, not because it was trendy, but because it made humans feel something. The hub and spoke home is that same principle applied to compact residential design. Let us get concrete for a minute, because I know you're wondering what this actually looks like when you sit down with a builder. The tiny home market in 2026 is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, seeing a steady 6 to 7% annual climb, driven by modular construction, rising housing costs, and expanding prefab options that are making energy-efficient compact living more accessible every year. In that market, the average traditionally built home sits at a benchmark of roughly $428,000 according to NAV data. Meanwhile, a professional-grade tiny home in 2026 typically lands between $70,000 and $150,000 for a turnkey product, with a lower end reserved for high-involvement DIY builds and the upper end reflecting 2026 labor and materials. In 2025, half of all house plans sold nationally were between 1,000 and 1,999 square feet, with the trend clearly shifting towards smaller, more efficient footprints. Designers are responding with light-filled, flexible layouts that make every square foot count. Now here's where the hub and spoke math gets interesting. A 400 square foot rectangular tiny home and a 400 square foot hub and spoke tiny home cost roughly the same to build per square foot. The material cost difference is minimal. In fact, because the hub and spoke eliminates hallways, you often end up with more livable square footage in the same envelope. But on the resale or rental market, the hub and spoke layout consistently outperforms the rectangle in guest satisfaction for short-term rentals, in perceived value for buyers, and in livability ratings for full-time residents. When people walk into a well-designed hub and spoke home, the most common reaction is disbelief that it is the same size as the rectangle they just toured. You are not paying more. You're getting more. That is the entire value proposition. So who is actually doing this right now? A few categories of builders and buyers are leading this trend in 2026. First, you have the multi-generational housing crowd. Families who need private sleeping and bathroom wings for grandparents, adult children, or in-laws, but want a shared communal hub for meals, gathering, and daily life. The hub and spoke layout handles this perfectly. Each spoke gives you privacy. The hub gives you connection. Second, short-term rental investors. If you have been following the STR market at all, you know that the experience is everything. A hub and spoke layout photographs dramatically better than a rectangle. It also makes life better. Guests who feel like they are in a larger, more thoughtfully designed space leave better reviews. Better reviews mean higher rates and better occupancy. Third, the tiny home community builders. Communities across the country are designing floor plans with clearly defined zones and natural flow. The hub and spoke principle, whether they use an exact name or not, is baked into the best designs because it creates a home where every zone has a purpose and the center holds everything together. And fourth, the solo DIY builder. Because the hub and spoke footprint can be built in phases. You start with the central hub. You add a bedroom wing. Later you add a second wing for a home office or extra bedroom. No hallways to reconfigure. No major structural changes. The model is inherently modular and incremental. Okay, I promised you at the beginning of this video that I would show you the one hidden feature of the hub and spoke design that almost nobody talks about. Here it is. The hub and spoke model creates an outdoor room for free. Think about it. When you have wings radiating outward from a central hub at angles, the spaces between those wings, on the exterior of the home, form natural enclosures. Depending on your site orientation and the angle of your wings, you can create a protected courtyard, a semi-private garden nook, or a shelter patio that feels like an outdoor room. And here's why that matters so much in the world of compact housing. Outdoor space that feels like an extension of your interior doubles your perceived living area without adding a single dollar to your enclosed square footage. You're not paying for that courtyard in lumber and drywall. You're getting it as a byproduct of the geometry. House plan industry data from early 2026 now shows that indoor-outdoor fluidity is the #1 requested feature in compact home design. Buyers and renters know intuitively that the home feels bigger when the outside is included in the living experience. Screened porches, courtyard gardens, sheltered patios connected by glass doors. These are not luxuries anymore. They are what separates a good compact home from a great one. The hub and spoke model does not just add a door to the yard. It uses geometry to claim that yard is part of your living room. The rectangle butts up against the lot. The hub and spoke wraps around it. That is the difference between a home that occupies a lot and a home that owns it. Now I want to be straight with you, because that is what this channel is always about. The hub and spoke layout is not magic, and it is not for everyone. Let me walk through the real trade-offs. Is it harder to build? Slightly, yes. A pure rectangle is the simplest framing job in residential construction. Any angled or radiating wing adds some complexity at the corners and roofline. In 2026, with labor rates at a premium, that complexity is real. Expect to add roughly 10 to 15% on the framing and roofing labor compared to a simple box. However, because you are eliminating hallways and dead space, the net livable area you get per dollar spent is often equal to or better than the rectangle. Does it work on every lot? No. A long, narrow urban lot is not ideal for a hub and spoke design. The model shines on square or slightly rectangular lots, rural parcels, and sites where you have some flexibility in orientation. If you are working with a tight 25-foot wide urban infill lot, you are probably better served by a vertical design or an L shape. What about permitting? The hub and spoke model is not inherently more or less difficult to permit than any other residential layout. It is a conventional stick frame or modular home in terms of its materials and systems. The permitting complexity comes from your local zoning and building codes, not the layout itself. That said, if you are building in a jurisdiction that uses square footage minimums or lot coverage maximums, the sprawl of a hub and spoke footprint may require more careful planning than a compact rectangle. Always verify with your local building department before you fall in love with any plan. Will it work as a tiny home on wheels? Not in the traditional THOW sense. A trailer-based tiny home is by definition a rectangle because that is the shape of the trailer. The hub and spoke model is a site-built or modular concept for permanent or semi-permanent foundation construction. If you need mobility, the rectangle wins on practicality every single time. So let us say you're sold on the concept. You want to explore a hub and spoke layout for your next build. How do you start? Step 1 is to define your hub first. Not your bedrooms, not your bathroom, your hub. Decide what the heart of your home is going to be. For most people, it is a combined living, dining, and kitchen space. Make it generous. Make it the room you actually want to spend time in. The hub is the star. Everything else radiates from it. Step 2 is to identify your spokes based on your privacy needs. Where do you want separation from the hub? Sleeping always goes in a spoke. So does any space where you need quiet or privacy. A home office that you need focused silence and belongs in a spoke. A noisy workshop or laundry does too. Step 3 is to think about the outdoor spaces between your spokes before you finalize the angles. The gaps between your wings are your bonus outdoor rooms. Orient your hub toward the best view or the best morning light. Let your spokes define the edges of a protected outdoor space rather than just radiating randomly. Step 4 is to work with a designer or architect who has done this before. Not every residential designer defaults to this layout, because the rectangle is easier to draw and easier to spec. Ask specifically to see a hub and spoke or radial layout option. The best designers will know exactly what you mean and will get excited about it. And step 5, plan for phasing if your budget requires it. Start with a hub and one spoke. Liven it. Let breathe. Add the second spoke when your finances allow. The hub and spoke model is inherently friendly to incremental building in a way that a rectangle simply is not, because you're adding a wing, not reconfiguring a box. Here's the thing that keeps coming back to me every time I think about layout design. We spend so much energy chasing square footage. We negotiate over every 50 square feet. We stretch our budgets to go from 300 to 350 to 400 square feet. And meanwhile, the single biggest driver of how spacious a home actually feels is not how many square feet it has. It is how those square feet are arranged. Two people can build the exact same square footage for the exact same cost. One will live in a shoebox that feels smaller every year. The other will live in a home that consistently surprises guests, photographs beautifully, and genuinely improves their daily quality of life. The difference is a decision made before construction begins. A decision about shape. The hub and spoke model is not a new idea. It is an ancient one, but in the world of alternative and affordable housing in 2026, where every square foot counts and every dollar has to work hard, it is the layout that is quietly outperforming everything else. Now you know why. If this video gave you something to think about, do me a favor and drop a comment below. I want to know, are you building or planning a build right now? And if you are, what shape is your floor plan? Let's talk about it down in the comments. If you want to go deeper on compact home layouts, I've got a full video on U-shaped tiny homes and courtyard living right here, and another one breaking down why families are choosing alternative layouts over traditional rectangles right here. Both are worth your time. Subscribe if you have not already. New videos drop regularly, all focused on the real stuff. Real designs, real costs, real results. I will see you in the next one.